Hello! Today we're going to draw a baby bunny. First, we'll draw a circle for his head. And we'll sketch in kind of the lower part of his face. I kind of sketched in where his nose would be. The lines can be a little rough, that's okay. Now we'll draw the bottom of his body, which is kind of like a weird hill. The bottom of his hind leg. We'll sketch in his foot. And now we'll sketch in his shoulder. Just comes down from his head. His chest. His front paw. This bunny's just sitting quietly on his haunches. His second paw, we'll sketch that in. We're just getting the outline of our bunny. We can always erase lines or go back and change things. Now for his hind foot, we'll change that, and we'll erase that line. I'm just using a regular H pencil. Fix his hind foot there. Clean up those lines a bit. Sketching that hind leg. Define his little feet. His little toes. Just a couple little lines to create the look of toes. And this front part, his chest is a little bit fuzzy because this is a baby bunny, so he's a little fluffy. We'll just add some texture. Just kind of going through and adding the initial lines. Sketching the hair, just getting the idea. And now we're going to draw his ears. I'm going to put that's first ear, so I put 2 lines. And I just connected these ears together. Your ears can be a little different shape, as long as they look like little bunny ears. And to really create bunny ears, we're going to draw the inside of the ear. So we're just following the line of the outside, just to create that sense of a hole in the ear, a sense of depth. And the second ear is kind of turned back, so we don't see that, the inside of the ear. Just going to fix his little face. So his snout or his nose part just kind of sticks out slightly. And his nose area is a little different color than the rest of his fur. Draw his nose and his mouth. Kind of shade in the underneath of his mouth. Just define his face a little bit. So it sticks out a little bit, his cheek. Now for the eye. Just kind of draw it down below, right below that ear. Just kind of an oval shape for an eye. Your eye could be a little bigger, a little smaller. But baby bunnies, their eyes look really big. And on the other side, we're just going to draw just a little bit of his eye. You can put a little eyelash up above there that'll stick out, just to finish off that side of the face. It's just a little bit showing that eye, darkening in, because bunnies' eyes are quite dark, quite black, most of them, unless they're red, albino bunnies. And remember to draw the white on the eye, just to keep that lifelike image of the eye. A little bit of glint of life with that white. Just smooth out that line, because we expanded his cheek a bit. Go back in, round off his cheek. Now we're going to shade in the ear. Now we can start darkening in areas and adding detail. The texture, the dark to light creates the depth of the image, creates that 3D effect, the lifelike effect. And we're just going to shade this area. It's a little darker at the bottom of the ear and the top because it's away from the light. And we can kind of squiggle because it's bunny's fur, so when you're shading, you can shade like it's fur. So you can squiggle the lines. You can create the fur with the use of the line. And we're just going to create some back fur. Fur on his cheek. So I'm just squiggling back and forth, almost like just back and forth, up and down. His behind's going to be darker because it's farthest away from the light. His underbelly will be darker as well, so we can shade that. And as we get up the belly, it's going to lighten up. So you can just put less pressure on the pencil or less lines to create a lightening effect. We'll shade underneath. His foot, it would be darker here. Darkest, the farthest away from the light. Right under his belly or his haunches, really dark. So I'm just shading back and forth. And as I'm shading, I'm almost shading the form. So I'll shade the way the foot, the roundness of the foot. I'll try to shade the lines that way. This is a really fluffy baby bunny. And it would be darker behind his head, it would be shadowed as well. Right there would be dark, underneath his neck. And I'm just going to pop up his head. Pop up his head as we shade underneath it to create that 3D effect. Shade under his little chin. See, as I'm shading, I'm creating the texture of fur. So you can just kind of squiggle. Just like squiggle how you would think fur looks. Back and forth, up and down. Doesn't have to be perfect because fur is a bit irregular. Continue shading, little squiggles. Remember, we'll shade this afterwards. Create some. Now we're going to start molding his face. Shading this area. Just continue to create the fur. Under his eyes, a little more defined, a little darker. And we can always lighten up these areas with our eraser or by smudging with our finger or a shader. Now we're going to start shading his brow area, creating some fur. It's going to be a little lighter here, so I'm putting less pressure on my pencil. Up here is a bit darker, so I darken it up. You can keep your lines farther apart as well in the lighter areas, so less lines will make it look lighter, as well as putting less pressure. And I can just shade his little leg down here as well. Define his foot, go up the back leg, this will be a little more shaded. Because his chest would be shadowing his legs. Just clean up these lines. Shape his foot a little bit. His foot was a bit bigger. Fix his little paw. Create his little toes again. Shade these in. And the bottom of his feet would be a bit darker. This would be shadowed right here underneath his chest area. Be really dark close to his body, and it would lighten up as you move away. And the dark to light creates that 3D effect. Now we'll grab a darker pencil. So this is a 4B. So it's a bit softer lead and it's also darker. If you don't have these pencils, you can just use your regular pencil and just darken up these lines by making the lines thicker, pressing a little firmer on your pencil just to create darker lines. So we're going to just fill in his eye. Remember to keep that white, those white dots. It really creates a lifelike look to the eye. The glint of white. And it's going to be darkest right at the farthest corners of his eyes. And we darken up his mouth and his nose, his cute little nose. And now we're going to go through and just darken up the darkest parts of this rabbit, or baby bunny. Layering the pencil lines and layering the lines will just create more depth, more detail to your drawing, and a more lifelike look. So you can layer these lines, and it's okay that the lines are lighter underneath it. Just darken that up. This other ear. We could have left that one ear where I drew that darker line. We could have left it really light and just shaded the line instead of drawing the defined line. But today I just decided to draw the defined line. We'll darken up his tail because that's farthest away from the light, so it's really dark. Just have fun. Intuitively just go through and darken up the areas that you can imagine would be the darkest, being farthest away from the light. There, my bunnies coming together. When I was a little girl, I used to raise bunnies. This reminds me of some of the bunnies I had. Just continue creating the fur. Use squiggles, shaping the fur in the direction you think or imagine it would go. And fur does take a while if you want to get that realistic look of fur. You can step back, look at your drawing, and as you darken up one area, you might feel like you need to darken up another area. Just fluff up his hair a little more there. Fill in his cheeks area and a little bit more. His face. Just move around the paper. Just keep adding the texture with the use of line. Squiggles. Shaping the fur. You could take this as far as you want to go with the texture and the detail. Just darken up this area right there. Darken up underneath here. There, he's looking a little fluffy, isn't he? With the use of line, with the use of shading, we can create texture and form. Now we'll take our shader, or you could use a Q-tip or your finger. You can just start blending in those lines. Remember, we can always go back in and darken up after. But just to start softening those lines together, you don't want to overshade because you want to keep some of those lines to create that texture of fur. Just shade under his mouth, but we're just kind of softening and smoothing and blending. But if you really wanted a really smooth look, you could. But if you want more of that textured fur look, just blend it ever so slightly. Just move around the page. Blend into the lines. There's no right or wrong way to do this. Just have fun with it. I'll blend in that back line. Make sure I don't have any hard to find lines that were just there for an outline. Blend in that foot. Already I can see where I want to darken up my lines. It's almost like a meditative state of flow. Blending, erasing, just the fine-tuning part. This is my favorite part of a drawing. The shape is already formed. And now we can just create the depth, create the detail as far as we want to go. I'll just kind of clean up. I always take my eraser and clean up the edges. And you can also use the eraser just to lighten up areas too. Right now I'm just cleaning up the edges. Just to clean up that drawing. And now we're going to ground this bunny by creating some ground underneath his feet. So I took another darker pencil, or if you don't have a darker pencil, you can just press hard on your pencil and create a nice dark ground underneath this bunny. So he's not just floating in space. And you can just squiggle, kind of scriggling back and forth, up and down, kind of creating a little bit of curvature. I'll put a little flower or plant here. Something for the bunny to eat. You can draw little round circles to create the idea of little rocks or pebbles. You can do whatever you want on the ground. You could put them on pavement if you wanted. You could put them on a beach. You could put them in grass. But this is I'm just pinning him on a dirt ground. The little plant. Just remember, underneath the bunny would be the darkest, and as the ground's farther away from the bunny, it'll get lighter because the shadow won't be there. I'll just kind of fine tune. You can look around your picture, see what do I want to darken up. Now that we have the ground in place, we have the fur quite established. I mean, you could play with the fur for hours. I've spent hours on a furry animal or human hair, lightening and darkening and shading, just layering those lines. I'll darken up his ear here. That's a really dark area. And see, it's dark. If you keep it darker on the outside of the circle and kind of go later as you go in, it creates that effect. But there's a hole there. Darken up his eyes a bit. On the other side, remember to keep it even. I think we're almost done. Kind of just darken up underneath here a little more. Pretty happy with my bunny. Shade it with my finger. An initial and write the date. Thanks for watching.